I got to share this with you. You know who Ginni Thomas is? Clarence Thomas's wife, Uncle Clarence on the Supreme Court. Well, Ginni is just a total Christian freak. She's a right winger. Ginni Thomas would have made a perfect guard at Bergen-Belsen or Treblinka. I mean, she's that kind of woman. Well, she presented something called Impact Awards Wednesday night. They had a big dinner in New York, a big awards dinner, right? Or was it Washington? It doesn't matter. I think it was in Washington. The ceremony was held at Donald Trump's hotel in Washington, right? So she presented these so-called Impact Awards to a dozen other right-wing nut fucks on Wednesday night. The awards were granted by a group called United in Purpose. That's a group that mobilizes conservative, right-wing, fucked up evangelical voters. And that group, United in Purpose, played a crucial role in turning out white evangelicals to vote for Donald Trump. Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it until the Messiah returns. That's a joke. That these evangelicals who voted for him have got to be the most screwed up group ever to walk onto the American political scene. The evangelicals voting for Reagan, no big deal. The evangelicals voting for George W. Bush, a little bit of a deal, but no big deal. But people who claim to be evangelical Christians voting for Trump? Now, I didn't, but if I would have had any reservations that maybe, perhaps, possibly, Christianity as practiced by these fuckwads had some redeeming value, it all went poof when the statistic was put out there that 87% of evangelicals voted for Trump in the last election. What a horrifying, disgusting, Christianity-burning factoid. It's just staggering. Anyway, press release from United in Purpose said the Impact Awards were Ginni Thomas's idea. Oh, there's a surprise. And were designed to, in her words, honor conservative leaders who are making a transformational impact on American culture. Ginni praised the honorees as, quote, the bravest, most effective, most dedicated, most determined warriors defending the values that are the real strength of America. They have shown moral courage in the face of desperate times. You know, Ginni ought to take her African-American Supreme Court Justice husband, and I can direct her to a few places in rural Georgia and L.A., Lower Alabama, and a few other places, South Carolina, where Ginni, this little Caucasian nut freak, and her African-American husband, the U.S. Supreme Court Justice who hates himself, I could send them to a couple of places where if they walked in to a diner to try to get served, old Clarence would have his head ripped off by the very fucking people that Ginni Thomas thinks are just wonderful. You know, those people who are making a transformational impact on American culture. That's right. The ones who want to push the blacks back to the back of the bus, cram the women back into the kitchen and occasionally the bedroom, take the children and fuck up their heads with this religious bullshit education. Those are the people Ginni is honoring. And Ginni, let me tell you something, because you'll never hear this. But if you and your old man, Uncle Clarence, went to one of these areas I'm thinking about, where I fucking live, I know these areas, Ginni, and your dumb shit husband is from Georgia. He knows these areas too, but somehow he transcended. But if I directed you, let's see, Milledgeville, Georgia would be another good place to go. But if I directed you to these places, Ginni, and you and your dusky old man walked in to get a cup of coffee at some little bar and grill, you might come out, but he wouldn't. And the reason he wouldn't is because the very people that you think so highly of would probably take it. Well, you remember that scene from Pulp Fiction where who was it? They got into this pawn shop and they were taken down in the basement. Who are the two actors? Come on. Bruce Willis and the black actor. The white actor was Bruce Willis. The black actor was this Marcellus Wallace was his character's name. But they took these two guys into the basement and tied them up. And it turned out that the owner of the shop was some kind of a real, I don't know, freak. He was into bondage and stuff. He had a what'd they call it? The geek. They had a geek who was all encased in leather and chained to the ceiling, you know. And these guys were crazy. And they took Marcellus into a back room and they tied him over a rail. They just tied him and spread his legs. And Marcellus is freaking out. Now, you've seen the movie. If you haven't, I recommend the movie. We've seen it, 10 times? Incredible movie. And then they start having anal sex with Marcellus. Now, Marcellus, anal sex is right up there with crushing the skulls of babies, I guess. He was in the movies married to Uma Thurman. And he's this huge gangster. I don't mean his size, although that's there too, but he's this gangster. And Bruce Willis' character gets free and shoots. He gets he has that big samurai sword. Right. He comes in where they're anally raping Marcellus with this huge sword and slices one of them and then gets Marcellus off this rack he's on. And the guy that tied him up, the Bruce Willis character, wounds him, and he's over there in the corner. The other guy's dead. And Marcellus says to Bruce Willis, you can go ahead and leave because I'm about to get medieval with this motherfucker. And he's talking about the one who had been anally raped. I love that line. I'm about to get medieval with this motherfucker. Right. Oh, Lord have mercy. Well, the reason that scene pops in my head, that's pretty much what would happen to Uncle Clarence in certain areas here in the South if Ginni brought him down here among the people that she thinks are conservative leaders making a transformational impact on American culture. Tell you what, Ginni, if somebody delivers this to you from a YouTube video, give me a holler. You can ask your old man. I'm sure he has the phone number. He can get it. Give me a call, all right? I'll be happy to direct you to one of these little bodegas where you can go and have a cup of coffee and your husband can have something else. But the top prize that Ginni gave away was the Outstanding Impact Award. I think Marcellus would have been familiar with that. The Outstanding Impact Award. Ow! Right? Anyway, the top prize, the Outstanding Impact Award, went to, wait for it, Sean Hannity, who gave the keynote address. This is what Sean had said, part of it. This fucking cracks me up. Because like I said, I watched this guy emerge from a cocoon and become this fucking vampiric moth. Hannity, it's incredible. But here's what he said. Listen to this. This is so original. This is so heartfelt. This is so profound. This is part of what he said. The fight is greater than ever for truth, and perseverance is necessary in the battle against fake news and the determination to get to the truth. Under President Trump, the forgotten man is forgotten no more, and we, the people, are going to work harder than ever to get the government back into the hands of American citizens where it belongs. Who, first of all, who writes that dribble? And secondly, it damn sure wasn't Sean. Sean is like Trump. If it's not up there on the teleprompter, he can't say it. So this is just...
That would probably be one of your cracks.
And Richard Viguerie, who was the founder of the modern, if you can combine the word modern with the term right wing, but he was the founder of the modern right wing political horseshit movement in this country. He was given the Lifetime Achievement Award. Oh, God. Also honored was this little rat bastard James O'Keefe, whose recent Project Veritas attempt to plant fake news stories about the geek down in Alabama, Roy Moore, in the Washington Post, blew up in his face when the Post's real journalists did the kind of things that journalists do. And Trump supporting prophet Lance Wallnau tweeted a blustery clip from O'Keefe's remarks, gushing that O'Keefe takes on the powers of darkness. These fuckers live in backwards world, don't they? I mean, all of this stuff is just the reverse of what is really happening. It's unbelievable. Okay, other honorees. Anti-Muslim extremist Frank Gaffney, who sees Muslim Brotherhood infiltration happening everywhere, including within the conservative movement. Leonard Leo, who is a Federalist Society executive who's helping Donald Trump fill the federal judiciary with far-right judges, which, by the way, is going to haunt us for a generation or two or three. And once again, every time I see something like that, I mean, Trump is temporary. Trump is going to evaporate at some point. No, he really is. Even if he abolishes the electoral system, the fucker is still going to eventually evaporate. We all do. But the destruction he's doing to the judiciary is something that's going to live on long after that fucker has died and turned into worm rot. And that's why whenever I consider that, I think to myself about all the people who just lifted their noses in the air and said, I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton. I'm not doing it. You assholes. Also, right-wing activist Star Parker, a favorite at religious right conferences for her speeches denouncing welfare recipients and what she calls the entitlement culture. Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale College. Oh, Jesus Christ, that's up in Michigan. I'll tell you, that place. He's a favorite of far-right activists for refusing to accept any government funding. But they're happy to get a bit of government help. Senator Pat Toomey, a Republican in Pennsylvania, inserted a provision into this fucked up Republican tax plan that exempts Hillsdale College from a new tax on university endowments. Don't you love these Christian bastards, don't you? Thomas Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. Blah! Charlie Kirk, who heads Turning Point USA, which is a right-wing youth leadership training organization not unlike the Hitler Youth. Also honored were Dan Bongino, a former cop and Secret Service agent who unleashed a memorable profanity-laden tirade at a reporter during his 2016 run for Congress. And a couple of more of minor trolls. But I mean, the combination of those people, Ginni Thomas, Jesus fucking Christ, and Sean Hannity getting the top prize, the Outstanding Impact Award.
They're just sucking his dick.
It's just astonishing.